Welcome back, everyone, to the Phenomenal Wrestling Podcast with your host, Matt and Ryan. It is July 26, 2021, and once again, we are proving that we have fantastic timing, as we are, 2 weeks late at this point?
we were crushing it in terms of timing. But look, I'm ready to talk about wrestling, and I'm excited to do it with you.
Absolutely. Well, let's just get right into it. Our top story tonight, AEW has released their long-awaited General Manager game on the App Store. Their first game release was the Double or Nothing Casino game, which was, it pretty much went over like a lead balloon. But now we've got something that actually has to do with wrestling and with the company itself. Simply put, you are role-playing as the general manager of AEW and are tasked with booking matches within a certain budget to maximize ratings and revenue so you can do it all again next week and the week after. Now, if you've ever played games like Modern Mania Wrestling or 80s Mania Wrestling, both developed by Checkmate Creative, then you know what to expect here because it's kind of a shameless copy of that, but it does distinguish itself in certain ways. The most impressive thing about the game is definitely its visuals. I love the design work for all the wrestlers in here as they are instantly recognizable but still delightfully cartoony, and the way the visuals of the matches, the way they play out, is a lot of fun to see. And, you know, even after playing it for over an hour, I never really got tired of seeing the little cutout characters fly around the ring and the little flourishes here and there when you add in weapons. It definitely helps the experience, and it does look better than the Mania Wrestling games I mentioned earlier, but I'm not sure I give it points for that since AEW certainly has more resources to work with than something thrown together by a small app company. So you had a chance to play this as well, Ryan. What did you think?
I totally agree. I mean, I think the visuals they really make it pop. I love the specific style. I mean, as a big comic book fan, I think it really pops out to me in terms of style. And I totally agree. It does, for me, I've played a few of those games as well. It doesn't really separate itself from the pack yet, but I think for kind of a debut app for them, for AEW, I think it's a good start. I'm sure they'll deepen the app in the game as it goes along. I have heard that it crashes for a lot of people. Some people aren't able to really get it going. I didn't really have that issue, but I know some people have, so maybe that's something that they'll improve on. But overall, I really like the style. I really like, like you said, them popping around the ring, and I think it's a cool start, and I think there's possibility for more.
Well, I didn't have any crashes, but there were a few bugs here and there with certain menus not loading right. But those can definitely be fixed in an update. And speaking of updates, another thing is that it would tell you there's an update available, and half the time there wasn't one, so it took a few tries to actually get in the game. So yeah, those are all things that can be updated as the game progresses. But the issue I have with the game it's kind of baked into the core mechanics, so unfortunately I don't think they'll be able to take those out anytime soon. And where the game starts to falter for me is the same way that the Mania Wrestling games faltered. I just can't wrap my head around the mechanics of the game, how the individual stats interact with each other, what the best approach is in any given scenario, and what is a good measure of success here. It's much more simplified than the Mania Wrestling games, which is either good or bad, depending on your perspective. For me, I think it kind of works out a little bit better since there's not as much minutia to be confused about. But the biggest flaw, the fatal flaw for these games, and where I think they just kind of missed the mark of what they should be doing, is that you can't determine the outcome of the matches. So it's no longer a true GM experience. Instead of trying to book long-term storylines with win streaks or baby faces overcoming challenges, you're at best trying to synergize stat combination and maximize outcomes, which was okay, I guess, for a little bit, but it left me feeling really unsatisfied. What did you think about all that?
That's a great point. I think it does take away from kind of the total control that you're supposed to have, or advertised to have, when you can't even determine the outcomes. It's kind of hard to build long-term storytelling, long-term storylines when that's the case. I think even those SmackDown versus Raw GM modes, where WWE is so into kayfabe, you can choose the outcomes, I'm pretty sure. So it's kind of surprising that that's not the case here. But, I wonder if, like you said, I mean, it's part of the core mechanic. So how easy that would be to change, or if they even would change that, I don't know. But I think that's a good point, and it does take away from it for me a little bit.
Yeah, and, even though I never really grasp what I'm doing or what I'm trying to maximize here, I did actually find one strategy that works pretty much every time. So here's your life hack for how to bet the GM Manager game. Do not waste your time hiring the low-level people like, I did. I want all the Dark Order guys. No, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. Just hire the best wrestlers with the highest popularity, no matter the cost, because they always give you a boatload of money to start each session with, and because of the high popularity, they pay for themselves within that first week. Not only that, you don't have to pay for them on a week-to-week basis, so it's better to just have 4 weeks of superstars instead of working with the lower-tier guys first and then getting the bigger stars in the later weeks. So, like, within an hour of me barely even understanding it, I feel like I've explored the mechanics and also, what would be the right word here? The magic disappeared. Like, I no longer felt like I was booking the matches that I wanted to see. Oh, Evil Uno versus Kenny Omega, stuff like that. It was just, who has the high stats? Go, go, go. There, I got money. I got fans. I got little television sets or whatever the little symbols are that mean things that are important.
You discovered the formula that could lead to success as opposed to, what you would actually want to see, hopefully leading to success.
Yeah. And on top of that, the PvP is pointless. To say this game has player versus player action is like saying that a classroom of students taking a quiz is a battle royale. There is no interaction between the two players in this PvP match. You're just doing your own thing for 4 weeks, and then you just compare each other's stats at the end.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I didn't even bother to look into what you could even buy as in-game currency. None of it felt like I needed to buy anything in there, so what would be the point in that?
Right.
It feels a lot shallower than it should have been. Probably I should have expected as much, because I did play those Modern Mania games, and as soon as they showed the trailers, it's going to be one of those. So perhaps I got my hopes up a little too high for no reason. But, first the Casino Battle Royale game, or the Casino Double or Nothing game, that's what it was. The casino game was just, it had AEW branding on the start screen, and it was just a boring casino game. And now this, which is not quite living up to the GM fantasy. I mean, I'm hopeful for that big budget video game that they got planned, but that has a few red flags for me as well. They keep touting the No Mercy guy as a big developer dude, but he hasn't really done all that much in the industry since then. I mean, he has a few games under his belt, but that's like when they brought the Shenmue 3 guy back and all he ever did was play Shenmue. That was it.
Right. Right. Yeah, well, hopefully, like you said, hopefully third time's a charm with this big budget
Third time's a charm.
I mean, that is, that's, we'll see. I've seen a few clips from the game too, and I don't know. It's, we'll certainly see. I mean, it's probably going to be better than WWE 2K21, right? By default.
or that Battlegrounds game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. So maybe it'll be already has a leg up. I don't know.
Well, we can only hope. And with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the recap of AEW. This is going to be for July 14th, 2021. Again, fantastic timing on our part. This is Fyter Fest Part 1, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're a little bit behind, but we're going to get you all the details on this. We're going to tell you our thoughts on it. And the first match is Jon Moxley versus Carl Anderson for the IWGP US Heavyweight title, with Moxley being accompanied by Eddie Kingston, and Anderson is accompanied by Doc Gallows. Now, in storyline, Moxley's been out of action since a pay-per-view where he took such a beating that he was not medically cleared. In reality, he wanted some time with his daughter since she was born around that time, but this is his first match since then. I kind of feel about this match the same way I felt about the Andrade match from last week. I mean, it's very good and not a bad way to bring someone back to the ring, but it's not exactly what I wanted to see from the guy. I hate to say it, but Moxley looked a little bit rusty here with some not especially great selling and a pretty straightforward match that relied heavily on forearm strikes. I mean, for crying out loud, there was 10,000 forearm strikes in the first 5 minutes of it.
Yeah. I totally agree. I agree with the forearm strikes for sure. I think Mox did look rusty as well. But I'm weirdly such a big fan of Carl Anderson. I don't know why I say weirdly, but I like watching Carl Anderson in singles matches. Not that I think he's held back by Gallows or anything. It's just I think he's a pretty good wrestler when he wants to be. I think these two did fairly well. I'd still give this like a B-, C+ kind of deal.
Well, Anderson definitely looked better in this match overall, if you ask me. He also did like a bajillion cutters, the same way Moxley did forearms. But hey, cutters are a lot cooler to watch, and he came up with a lot of creative ways to do those.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And, even if I was a bit hesitant or a bit underwhelmed in the first half, it does pick up speed in the second half with stronger moves from Moxley and a much more, I say, desperate pace with Moxley eating a pile driver and a bevy of cutters. But then he manages to stick it out and finishes Anderson with a paradigm shift. Perfectly fine for an opening match. Just kind of lacks something for it to be a great title defense. And despite Kingston and Gallows being there, they didn't do much. They just threw a few punches in the first minute and they were just gone.
Right. Yeah, they weren't involved too much.
Yeah, that was a little disappointing, But hey, it's his first match back, and the crowd. He can't do anything that would get this crowd to turn against him.
Nope. No. Yeah, he is over as anybody.
Oh yeah, I mean, is there anyone who's more over than him? Even Jericho, he has the song, so he maybe has a leg up in there. But other than that,
no, I think he might be the most over.
Yeah. After that, we cut to Jake Roberts and Lance Archer, who are still in some sort of abandoned warehouse, but it must have pretty decent cable service because they are talking about the last match, which literally happened less than a full minute prior to us cutting to them. So that was kind of interesting. It's almost they knew what was going to happen.
Exactly. They had the script. Is that the script over there?
But it's pretty straightforward. Lance is challenging Jon Moxley for the title that he just defended in a Texas death match. And that's probably the kind of match you want to see Lance Archer in. So I'm definitely excited to see that one.
Oh yeah. I think they wrestled the same they at least wrestled in Japan. So I think it'll be a good match.
Yeah,
for sure.
that was definitely did they show clips on it this week? But they might have shown some from the Texas death match. But yeah, that's a perfect use of Archer there. Even if
definitely.
Even if he is kind of like the big guy everyone beats, that's the kind of match you want to put him in.
For sure, definitely. Make him showcase his lethality, I guess.
Definitely. And it also kind of explains why this particular match was a little underwhelming, because we're here to just reestablish Moxley's cred before the big match, I guess.
Yep, I would totally agree.
After that, we have Alex Abrahantes, who is trying to get an interview with Andrade El Idolo, but he's not interested in any of that. He wants Death Triangle. Yes. All of the yes to that. I definitely want to see him face off with Penta, Phoenix, and even Pac. Pac is great as well.
Yes.
That's where this whole Andrade thing should have started, but I'm glad we're finally getting there.
For sure. Yeah, I am extremely excited to see him go against any of those three. I think it'll be great. Especially Rey Fenix. I'm excited to see Rey Fenix just wrestle, period.
I'd like to see Rey Fenix wrestle a mop, because I think he'd still make it look amazing.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's going to be such a great match. But yeah, obviously I'm a huge Pac and Penta fan, so it'll be nice. It'll be as a fan of all four of these guys, I'm very excited.
Now it's a 3-person team versus Andrade. You think he's going to get any cohorts on this? Like people are going to get in the ring?
That's what I was wondering. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I don't know. Maybe he's just. I mean, they can't just establish Andrade as capable of taking on 3 of the best.
Probably not.
So, right. That would be wild. So yeah, I mean, they'll have to get creative. They'll have to think of some way to kind of narrow it down or put somebody on Andrade's side. No one pops to mind though immediately. So it's going to be interesting.
Miro might be a good combo, but he's doing his own thing.
Yeah, he sure is.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We'll think on it. We'll come up with some answers on that.
Yeah.
After that, we have Brian Cage versus Ricky Starks for the FTW title, which is not a real title, but they're pretending it is
That's
anyway.
Right.
Now, kind of like the first match, this one was not exactly firing on all cylinders at the beginning, with Brian Cage dropping Starks within the first minute of the match. That looked a little sloppy. And then Stark starts getting the heat on the guy. I mean, he's like a giant meat mountain, so it's not very believable when the smaller guy is just twisting his arm and biting his fingers. I mean, there's ways for small guys to get ahead, but I can't even imagine you be able to twist his arm without him just being able to like flex you off of him.
And just flip you.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
But for the most part, though, this is a match that is not so much about the action itself, but the story they want to tell, which is about the breakup of Team Taz. And things do kind of kick into gear when Stark starts mounting a genuinely impressive offensive. Cage lands a pile driver on him, which is a brutal move to put on a guy who's just coming off neck surgery. But then Starks lands an impressive powerbomb on Cage. So, still some good stuff in there, even if it was a little bit sloppy at first. Starks is getting desperate at this point and goes for the title. But none other than Will Hobbs stops him from taking it. And Starks is in utter disbelief and doesn't see Cage coming from behind to scoop him up into a fireman's carry and land a big slam on him. Do you know what slam that was? I don't know all the wrestling moves by heart at this point, so I couldn't exactly tell. Was it like a Samoan drop or something?
The Cage on Starks one?
Yeah, when he put him up on his shoulders for the fireman's carry. He did like...
Oh, I think it was kind of an F5. Yeah.
And then he goes for the pin, but Starks kicks out. He is full of heart and all that. But Cage is not deterred and prepares for another move as soon as Stark gets up. But then Hook starts distracting the ref on the apron, and Hobbs gets up on the apron with the belt. Cage either doesn't see this or doesn't care as he charges after Starks, but Starks gets out of the way, and Hobbs bashes Cage over the head with the belt, and Starks follows up with this amazing-looking spear just in time for the ref to turn around and count the pin. So Ricky Starks is your new FTW champion, and it looks like Brian Cage has been officially beaten out of Team Taz as they all celebrate on the ramp while Cage is a broken mess in the ring. You know what? Even if the action itself wasn't that good, the drama involved, it got me excited just then to talk about the drama. The whole Cage and Team Taz thing has been brewing for a long time. Finally came to a head. Action could have been a little bit better, but I thought it was satisfying for the most part.
I thought so too. I mean, I think it's actually kind of surprising that Starks is the one to take the title off of Cage. I really thought that, I think I said it in a previous episode, that Hobbs was the one that they were going to kind of build up to winning the FTW title, but I don't know. Maybe if they just do this kind of like one by one, Team Taz falls apart, and whoever, maybe Hobbs takes the title from Starks next or something. I don't know what they're gonna do, but it was kind of surprising to me that Starks defeated Cage. Curious to see what happens next honestly for Cage, where he goes. Maybe he teams with Andrade. Maybe he's got.
There you
to
go.
I don't know.
Get him to team with Andrade. I mean, Andrade's not full heel yet, and Cage is only starting his babyface turn.
Exactly.
It's like ships passing in the night.
Exactly. Cage is meeting on the way up. Andrade is meeting on the way down.
Perfect. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, it makes sense to me that Starks is the guy who took it off of him. Brian Cage was the first person that Taz brought into his faction, and then when he brought Cage in, it officially got the name Team Taz. So, it has that component to it, and Cage being the first person on the team, the first one out as well. There's some, poetry to that, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, are we just going to jump right into the feud with them, or are they going to do something else in the meantime?
I don't know. That's the thing. I mean, it's kind of tricky, the whole Team Taz implosion. I mean, does Cage just move on now, or, what does he move on to? So I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens next.
I will say this. Team Taz is surprisingly resilient as a faction. I don't think they've ever won even a little bit in any of the feuds that they've had, but Taz is so good on the mic that he can reheat his entire faction in just a minute. So Cage is going to have to work on his own now. That's a pretty tricky, scary prospect for the guy. I don't know how popular he was prior to joining AEW. I wasn't following the indie stuff at all. But he has definitely a unique physique. He is one of the big... AEW's got a lot of big guys who are not just big, but athletic and flexible as well. But Cage is in his own little sphere for that. He is very impressive on that stuff. So he can definitely find a place. He just needs to be able to do promos and stuff like that without Taz backing him up. So we'll see how that goes.
Definitely. It'll take some growing from Cage. But I'm excited. I think he can handle it well.
And speaking of things to get excited about, Cody is in the ring and ranting about Malachi Black's senseless assault on Arn Anderson last week and wants the coward to show himself. Instead, Black shows up on the Titantron, and he tells a very overlong story about a man putting his prized horse out of his misery. I kind of think we got the meaning of that when he literally said the first sentence, but he just went on, and I think even the crowd was kind of done with it because they kept going, "What?" whenever he finished the sentence. But once he's done, Cody shouts him to get in the ring, and then the lights go out and come back on to reveal him standing in the corner to start brawling. Security has to come and break it up, which all but cements a match between these two in the near future. And the thing that stood out the most is Cody is decked out in an immaculate white suit with blonde, close-cut hair, while Malachi is in all black with his scraggly mane and eye makeup. First thing I thought about was Good Omens with Cody as Azerfall, or whatever his name was, and Malachi as Crowley. Clearly, they're going to play off the whole Malachi Black thing to the nines in this feud.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you want to get me interested in a Cody feud, put Malachi Black on the other side for sure. I think it seems like the crowd at least after the Overlong story, the crowd was super into it. And I think they're making Malachi Black very ominous, which is great. I'm really digging it.
Now, I saw some of him when he was in NXT and when he got called up to the main roster initially. He seems to be a different character than he was then. I couldn't even tell if he was really a babyface in that particular role, but is this particular version of Malachi Black working for you?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's something they actually started in the last few weeks that he was in WWE. They were doing this kind of... they did something like he had the eye thing in his last few appearances. So it's interesting to see them continue it in a different company. I think it's working for me so far. It's something different, but it's still that same core of the Aleister Black character. So I'm really into it. It's something new and something old. So it's really working for me.
I think he looks a little bit weird in a suit, but I guess most wrestlers do. I see him so often in just the trunks and the loaded up on tattoos thing. So I'm wondering if he's just going to do that when he finally gets in the ring, or is he going to have a new ring look?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, maybe he'll come out in this really cool gothic coat. That's what I'm imagining.
We cut to Alex Marvez, who once again is proving to be an agent of pure chaos, and that he's trying to interview Tully Blanchard about the match last week when he walks right into Proud and Powerful. The only explanation how neither one of them saw these two sitting on suitcases stacked in their direct path, and the fact that Alex Marvez runs out of there as fast as possible, leads me to think that this was a total setup. Not making any accusations, just putting my thoughts out there.
I think you might be right. I think there's no other explanation.
Proud and Powerful mean talk Tully for a bit before Ortiz grabs him from behind and Santana threatens him with a crowbar. It all turns out to be a gag, as the crowbar isn't real, and they say that they were taught to respect their elders, which, I mean, you're still menacing an elderly man, but whatever.
Right.
And we're just continuing on with this Pinnacle Inner Circle feud. It's getting a little bit long in the tooth, but I'm at least interested in seeing what a proper Proud and Powerful versus FTR match would look like.
Yeah, same here. That's pretty much what I'm clinging to at this point.
And what was Tully wearing? What was with that red jacket he had on?
I truly don't know. That was out of this world.
After that, we cut to the ring where Tony Schiavone calls out the Hangman to speak his mind about the upcoming title match that is probably going to happen sometime soon. This is easily the best storyline that AEW has. The crushing fall of Hangman Adam Page, followed by his long-fought redemption. The Dark Order is pushing him. He's finally found the guts to come to the ring and call out Kenny. And yeah, he is asking for that title match. Now, whether he can actually stand up to him in the ring is another story, but the Elite come out to mock him and belittle him, try to undermine his confidence, which is definitely his weak point at this point. And the Young Bucks in particular are throwing his betrayal of them back in his face. Back in, what was it? It was All Out, I think it was, where they had the big title match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, the Young Bucks lost to the Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega then. And then a few months down the road, they were supposed to have a rematch, or there was most likely going to be a rematch. And Hangman got scared, mostly by FTR telling him, you know, trying to convince him and all that stuff. So he screwed the Young Bucks out of a title shot. And that's basically the impetus to all of this. And now you got the Young Bucks, who are full heel now, throwing that right back in his face. Well, that and the alcoholism, which is probably not getting as much attention as it should be. I mean, I don't think we want to go all Scott Hall on this, but
right.
You also don't want to lose the cowboy tough guy angle that he's got going for him. I don't know. What do you feel about the alcohol in his character? Do you think it's adding to him, or do you think it's an intentional way of dragging him down a little bit?
I think it might be like, you know, a Tony Stark kind of thing, where it kind of is supposed to drag him down or give him an Achilles heel or something. Some kind of, I don't know, like some kind of mark on him. It doesn't exactly work for me, but I could see why it might for other people.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of people see it as a cool thing or something like that.
Right.
Which, I won't worry about it too much for now, but I'm curious if it is going to become a bigger factor the closer we get to whatever match it is, because Hangman's got a lot of confidence right now, but he gets in the ring with Kenny, who knows what's going to happen, especially with what's going to happen next. Omega he doesn't want to have the match, so he tries to throw a match at the Hangman to try and keep him away from the title shot. Basically, who was it? Omega and the Young Bucks, and was it Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows? I think it was those 5.
Yes.
If Hangman and the Dark Order can beat those 5 in a 5-on-5 elimination match, then Hangman's going to get his title shot, which he already earned. He's number 1, but he actually agrees to it on the condition that the Dark Order get a title shot. So the Dark Order has been integral to the Hangman storyline for a while now, but now they're getting even more ingrained to the point where they're in the ring with him. So whether they're going to be a detriment or an asset to him, we're going to see when they finally have this match. I think they're going to go a little straightforward with this. Like, Hangman's just going to go up and up and up and up until he wins. But it'd be interesting if they had a few valleys along the way. But I'm not sure if they're going to do that. What do you think?
I'm not sure if they're going to do that either, but I totally get what you mean. I think having Hangman completely dependent now on the Dark Order is a good kind of storyline shift. You know, the way he's kind of hasn't fully embraced them in the past. It's kind of a nice storyline twist to be like, okay, what if it comes down to, Evil Uno versus Kenny, and that's the only way Hangman gets a shot at the title? You know what I mean? That's a really cool. It's cool to imagine what they're going to do with it. And I think I'm always a fan of the 5v5 elimination matches. I mean, obviously Survivor Series being the biggest one example of that. But I think it's a really cool way of incorporating kind of a few different storylines into one match. I think it's going to be really cool.
It'll definitely be interesting to see where the Hangman Adam Page storyline goes. I think it may be a little too early, at least in Kenny's mind, to drop the title, but it might still be the best thing for him if he drops it at the next pay-per-view.
Yeah. Yep, that's kind of what I'm thinking too.
The problem is that then his gimmick is that he's the belt collector. He's got to give back the other belts before he just goes away.
Right. Well, yeah, he's facing when is the I don't know when the next big pay-per-view is. It's August, right? I'm guessing.
Yeah. They usually have one in August and then one in like November or something.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm curious about the whole timing about when Kenny's going to start dropping belts, but I don't know. Yeah, that could lead to a little bit of a kind of valleys happening. But I just hope they don't delay it too long, because I think the crowd is really fiending for this one.
Yeah, they're really behind the Hangman, and it's a good thing because it proves that if you work on a storyline this long in this way, you can get a crowd to get invested in it.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think they've been doing, and it's a good thing that it's basically their top storyline is being done extremely well.
From there, we go to Alex Marvez, who is interviewing Jericho. I don't know where this interview is happening. Perhaps this arena just has really nice dressing rooms. But once again, Agent of Chaos, because Jericho is attacked by Shawn Spears, who's wielding a folding chair. Darn you, Alex Marvez! Yeah. Will your lust for wanton destruction ever be satiated? Actually, I jumped ahead of it. Let me point one thing out here real quick. Jericho is giving this promo about how MJF's a smart guy. He modeled this after the labors of Hercules, but what MJF didn't tell you is how that story ended, with Hercules conquering all his challenges. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, but you're also not telling them how it began, with Hercules killing his entire family.
Right. You're picking and choosing as well, yeah.
But anyway, Jericho gets hit with the chair. Shawn Spears, who's actually, I'm really liking Shawn Spears in this role.
Yeah, me too.
He's definitely coming into his own a lot more than he did when he was with Tully by himself. So if anything is coming out of the Pinnacle, it is him looking better. And then MJF comes out, and, he's just smug and all that stuff. So yeah, we're gonna get our first Labor of Jericho challenge next week, which is gonna be Shawn Spears versus Jericho, where Shawn Spears is the only one who can use a chair. I kind of like it when they do goofy stuff like this. Like, you don't want to do this kind of thing for a title, but if it's part of a storyline where a guy has to challenge different wacky obstacle course style things, I think he can do some good stuff with that.
No, definitely. Yeah, exactly. I think it adds just more flavor to a match that doesn't involve a title, for sure. So I'm excited. And I'm excited, like you said, I'm excited for what Shawn Spears has been doing. I think he's really grown a lot as a performer. And
he's back to being the chairman, which, that's what got him into AEW, and he kind of dropped it for a while there. Now that he's the chairman again, I think he's back in his element.
Definitely. I would totally agree.
Now, after that, we have Matt Hardy versus Christian Cage. This has definitely been a feud that will mean more to fans from 20 or so years ago than to me, who's relatively new to all this. But Cage and Hardy are two solid wrestlers, and they put on a pretty darn good match here. It starts off a bit slow, like pretty much every other match this episode, because it seems like neither one of them want to hurt the other, which is probably good considering the kind of injuries they've had. But eventually they start pulling out the big moves, like when Cage jumps from the post to the floor to wipe out Hardy. He kind of just landed on his feet on that one. He just kind of grazed him with his elbow or something like that, but it was still, I'm not going to be able to jump from the top rope to the floor like that, so that was pretty cool to see. And with that, he maintains a solid advantage until Hardy has Cage's head through the ropes and drops it down to the steel steps. That was a really cool spot there too. And they keep fighting. Suplex from Hardy turns things in his favor though, and he actually lands a twist of fate, but Cage manages to just barely kick out of it, to the surprise of Hardy, and he decides the best option now is to kick Cage out of the ring, nearly knock him out with this submission hold, which I don't think I've ever seen before. He's just kind of like hanging in the air and squeezing them as tight as he can.
Right. Apparently, I think it's called the leech.
Sure, why not?
I looked it up. I think it's called the leech.
Well, whatever it is, he basically knocks out Christian Cage with this and rolls back into the ring for a 10 count, which, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's as legitimate a way to win as any. If you got the 10 count as a stipulation, go ahead and use it.
Yeah.
But then Cage, he's the babyface, so he wakes up at 9, runs in, boom, kill switch, and he is done. He pins Matt Hardy, gets the win. I guess the feud is over. Who knows? But I thought it was a good match.
I thought it was a good match. My only complaint is that, you kind of explained, I feel like the finish kind of came out of nowhere. It was just kind of like, okay, he's unconscious. Oh, no, he's not. Oh, okay.
I didn't mind it too much because A, it's kind of a babyface thing to do, and B, I think it relies more on Matt Hardy's surprise than Christian Cage's consciousness and full capacity at that point. He just needs to be able to get Hardy off balance just long enough to land the kill switch, and that's basically all that happened at the end there. But yeah, it was a pretty good match. And then there's some shenanigans at the end with Hardy Family Office coming out and the Jurassic Express coming out to make the save for Christian. So we'll probably be continuing things in that direction. I don't know. Does this mean much to you I think you're a longer fan than I am. Does this mean much to you that these two are fighting again?
It's cool. I don't know if it's more cool in like a novelty sense or cool just in a nostalgia sense or what, but I like it being 2021 and, these two are still having solid matches. I think that speaks to some part of my heart, I would say.
As long as they aren't breaking each other's necks and giving each other concussions.
Exactly.
Jesus Christ.
Exactly. Yeah.
After that, we have Britt Baker come out for a promo, and frankly, there is no way she's supposed to be a heel in this feud she has with Nyla Rose. She doesn't cut a heel promo at all, and the crowd is cheering for her the whole time, which I suppose is fair, as AEW isn't really invested in getting the crowd to like Nyla for this match. They just want her to work a decent match as another notch on Britt Baker's belt during her title run.
Yeah.
They also do something here that I don't think I've ever seen before, and that's give Nyla and Vicky a jobber promo. They don't come to the ring to talk back at Britt Baker. Instead, they are in the back watching it unfold on a TV screen and trying to take her down a peg while her music is blaring and she is waving to the crowd on screen. That was like,
yeah, that was interesting.
That's like us just screaming at the television said, boo!
Right, yeah, it just doesn't do anything.
Like, oh gosh, Baker's really going to feel that one.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it just does nothing.
Yeah, I can't say I'm looking forward to this match with how just poorly they booked Nyla. Just as anything, heel, babyface. She's just not a threat here. But Baker is certainly popular enough with the crowd, and I can only hope that AEW is working on a very cool program with her once she's finished with Nyla.
That's the hope. I mean, that's what we've been hoping for, I think, for a few weeks now. But we'll see. We'll certainly see. I feel like everything you said is spot on. I'm not super pumped for this match, but hopefully they can surprise us. After
that, we have Sammy Guevara versus Wheeler Yuta. And Yuta is accompanied to the ring by Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. Apparently, he's the long-lost fifth member at this point of the Best Friends. I guess at least until Trent's back. But, Sammy is certainly being portrayed as the golden boy of this inner circle. And with his babyface turn, he is going to have to wrestle matches outside of the one feud he's got going on with the Pinnacle. So this is a good move on their part. Get him in with a young guy who has some credibility because he's with a good group, and then just have Sammy, have a good match with him. He doesn't roll over him, but he's definitely the winner here without question.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty solid match, and I thought it had a pretty decisive outcome, which was good. You want to keep building Sammy, and I don't think losing to Sammy is going to do anything to stunt Wheeler Yuta's growth at all. So I think it was the right move. I think it was a solidly booked match, and I think it was just kind of like a showcase for Sammy, if anything.
Yeah, and I mean, in a show that's so dense with stuff so far, it's nice to have a little fluffy fare here. That's all it really
Definitely. Exactly.
We cut to an interview that apparently happened earlier where QT Marshall is being a jerk and pours a protein shake on Tony Schiavone. Now, considering that Cody has moved on to Malachi Black, I doubt that he's going to keep the feud going on with QT. But despite some of the promos being a bit lackluster, he's got a decent stable of guys there. And I hope we see more of him and the Factory, even if they just end up as stepping stones for the baby faces that are coming up.
Me too. I'm a big fan of the Factory. So I'm glad they made at least an appearance on this show. So I'm hoping to at least see them in a program sooner rather than later.
What happened to Anthony Ogogo? Wasn't he supposed to be a big thing?
That's what I was wondering. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I have no idea.
I don't know. He's not in the Olympics again, is he?
I don't think so. I feel like AEW would be all over that.
And then after that, we have Penelope Ford versus Yuka Sakazaki, which, much like the last match, there's not a lot here to advance any great storylines. Miro doesn't even make an appearance like he did at Penelope Ford's last match. But it gave us a good show, and frankly, this is probably the best Ford's match has had since her recent return. It's probably mostly due to Yuka, who is giving her a run for her money, which means that she has to bring a lot of her A game and get right off the bat, just go at 100 miles per hour. She does a lot of work in the ropes, including this nice shotgun drop kick while Sakazaki's tied up in them. And she's got a few cool submission holds that she's been working through on the last few weeks. But even with all that, Yuka Sakazaki's definitely the one who's in control here, and she does eventually win with, a Magical Girls splash?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so, I mean, that was a fine match. What do you think of Yuka Sakazaki?
I like Yuka Sakazaki. I think she's got some interesting moves. I like she delivered a senton. I'm pretty sure that was nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I was a fan. I haven't seen much of her before this, so it was kind of new to me. But I like what I saw.
Yuka also has this spinning hammerlock toss thing that kind of looked like an F10, and that was pretty cool. We talked about how we want to see what's next for Britt Baker after they're done with Nyla Rose. You think any chance that Yuka Sakazaki is going to go against her? They brought her back for a reason. That would be
awesome.
They had to have.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I think she might require a little bit more build. So hopefully they can do that. But I would not be opposed to that at all. I mean, I think it was on the show for a reason, right? So yeah. I wouldn't be opposed. I wouldn't be opposed to that whatsoever.
And after that, we get the main event, Darby Allin versus Ethan Page in a coffin match. To win the match, you must put your opponent in the coffin and close the lid. So, as far as you can tell, no variations on the typical coffin match rule. This was a good match, but it was definitely a Darby Allin match, which has its ups and downs, at least for me.
Interesting. Yeah. I really like this match, and I'm not even sure why. I mean, I think I'm just a sucker for Darby Allin in general. I think I'm kind of a Darby Allin mark because there was just a lot that he did. I mean, even the ending was really cool, I thought, where he drove his own body through the coffin lid.
Okay, but that was so bad of an idea. Okay, the coffin
terrible
is
idea.
Human being shaped. I understand Darby's a little bit smaller than most guys, but he's not that much smaller. So
right
on the outside of the coffin, like, it's not just like the outline of the coffin itself, which is all wood. It's got these like little wooden pieces that are like triangles that I guess hold the lid in place. So when he's crashing through it, you can see all these spiky little triangles that he could have so easily have hit. And I don't know, maybe there was a reason that Jesus was in the audience of this match, because he is the luckiest son of a gun in the entire industry.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, though. So let's kind of go back and talk about the match itself. They bring out the coffin. Darby Allin comes out. He's wearing like a jacket or something, and he starts throwing himself at Ethan Page. And it turns out he's got like a steel plate vest on, which, hey, maybe that would have been helpful in the handicap match, but he brought out here, did it for 2 moves, and threw it away. Whatever, it's no DQ, so you can keep doing it. And then they brawl. Scorpio Sky comes out of the coffin. Darby owns up. Surprise! Scorpio Sky punch. And that's what brings Sting down, and those two brawl for a while. They have a good brawl. It was fine. Scorpio Sky seems to like to work with Sting because he's always just selling and marking out for the guy whenever they're up against each other. But they do some stuff in the outside. Darby Allin and Ethan Page go out to the outside and start doing stuff. Darby Allin, God bless the guy. He's going to have the worst spine problems in the world. He took a backdrop or whatever it was onto a steel railing. Like, what the heck, dude?
Yeah, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah, and Ethan Page, he's bringing him back to the ring after that. But then he does this, like, military press throw where he lands on the concrete floor. That must have been fun as well. And we mentioned Jesus. For whatever reason, I think we saw this one other time in the very early days of AEW, but there's just a random guy in the crowd who is in full Jesus garb with the beard and everything. So that was a little bit silly. I think the last time I saw that was with it was actually like one of my favorite dark matches ever. It was back when Shawn Spears was kind of a joke. He went up against Joey Janela in a match on like the Christmas Eve show or whatever, and Joey Janela comes out in full Santa gear. And so he fights as Santa, and eventually they run into a guy who's dressed like Jesus, and they just kind of high five or something at that point. So that was fun. Unfortunately, Darby Allin doesn't give him a high five here.
No.
And then they go back into the ring. And Ethan Page is just tearing apart the ring. I don't know if this... I'm assuming this is a real thing that's part of the ring ropes, but there's like a giant hook on the end of the ring ropes, and so they end up fish hooking each other. That probably wasn't as bad as everything else, but that was kind of gruesome to see. What probably was the worst thing, like maybe the coffin drop off the top rope into the coffin itself at the very end of the match might be a little bit less worse than this, which is that Ethan Page brings the steel steps into the ring and gives an ego's edge to Darby Allin, who lands on it and bends the gosh darn steel steps with his lower back.
Yeah, that was a tough one to watch.
Oh my god. I mean, it's all good stuff, but I can't separate the fact that some guy is going to more than likely have a lot of severe problems 20 years down the road if he keeps doing this stuff.
Right. It's hard not to think about the outcomes and the future.
Ethan Page, he takes a fair bit of beating here, but he's thankfully not as crazy as Darby Allin when it comes to this stuff. He relegates the craziness just to his eyes.
Yes.
But, then they fight and fight. So eventually, what was it that got Ethan Page into the coffin? Do you remember what it was?
Let's see.
I remember what it was.
Oh, it was a skateboard,
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Darby Allin just starts clawing at Ethan Page's eyes, so Ethan Page is just kind of standing there wobbling for a bit. My eyes! In front of the coffin, he can't take a step back or whatever, but, who cares? Darby Allin grabs a skateboard from underneath the ring and does, I don't know what you would even call it. It wasn't like a kickflip or anything. He just lands. He just jumps on the skateboard onto him and knocks him into the coffin, closes the lid, wins the match. Match is over. Everyone can go home happy, but no, not for Darby Allin. He's not done yet. He climbs to the top turnbuckle and does a coffin drop right into the coffin, which, as we said, is human being shaped. They don't design these for elephants. They design it for people. And Darby Allin is not much smaller than a person. So when he lands on there, he had good aim. I'm surprised at how good the aim was, but it could have gone really bad.
Yep, that's for sure. And it would have just been for an exclamation point on a match. So that would have been devastating.
But I mean, it was a good match. No one's dead. Hopefully no one's permanently hurt down the road, but I mean, this was definitely an exciting way to end the show. They definitely are trying to give people their money's worth now that they're going on the road.
Yeah, I would totally agree. They definitely, I feel like they pulled out a lot of the stops for this one, and I mean you could tell. Yeah,
I didn't love everything on the show, but it was definitely a solid collection of matches and some fantastic promos, with a good ending match with Darby Allin. Just hope that guy's okay, man.
yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm sure immediately he's fine, but hopefully it doesn't add up.
Yeah, I mean, he was a skateboarder for a few years before that. Apparently he says that's worse than what he does in wrestling, which, doubt.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, well, that'll do it for AEW this week, at least for July 14th. And we'll go ahead and move on to our video of the week, which is perhaps the greatest moment in TNA history. It's certainly the best moment in the Hogan years, if nothing else. On a random episode of Impact in July of 2010, we have Ric Flair with his faction Fortune in the middle of the ring, and Jay Lethal comes out to the ramp. I couldn't tell you what they are talking about, but they get into an argument, and both of these guys just crank it up to 11. They shout back and forth at each other, they trade sick burns, they even do some pantomime wrestling moves, which just, it is absolute chaos from beginning to end, and one of the best things I've ever seen from Ric Flair. Lethal spends a whole segment doing a Ric Flair impersonation, and every time we cut to Ric, you can see that his blood is boiling. When Lethal elbow drops his coat, we cut to Ric and the stare he gives. 1,000 dying suns pales in comparison to the rage and fury that he is feeling at that moment. That is a look that tells you that he will destroy this man, inch by inch, molecule by molecule, until his atoms are scattered to the wind. For only then will his thirst for vengeance be satiated. It is an astounding segment, and for me, this is who Ric Flair is. I'm fairly new to wrestling, so I've never really seen him in his prime. I probably haven't even seen any of his matches prior to joining WWE in 1991, and even then, even after that, I've only seen a smattering of matches at best. But here, with Ric Flair, I mean, when he joined TNA at the time that he did, he probably saved the company for several years. Perhaps even more than Hulk Hogan ended up doing. I mean, sure, Hogan had more star power at that point, I guess. But Ric was there week in and week out, doing ridiculous nonsense like this constantly. And that period of TNA is eminently watchable because of him. He kind of set the tone for the rest of the company, which was pretty much a complete and total farce at that point. But it was at least something worth kind of interesting to look at, in a train wreck sort of way, if nothing else. What did you think about this whole segment?
I mean, it's one of my favorite segments ever. I mean, I think it goes without saying that Jay Lethal's Ric Flair impression is incredible.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I mostly talked about Ric Flair in this, but Jay Lethal is just as good here. He is just twisting, just turning the screws on Ric Flair this entire time, and is just getting under his skin so effectively.
It's unbelievable. Jay Lethal's going toe to toe with one of the greatest promos ever. I mean, it's incredible. And so Jay Lethal does a great job. But for somebody whose career is filled with so many iconic reactions, so many iconic lines, catchphrases, whatever, this might be Ric Flair's best in terms of just pure reactions, because he is blowing a gasket. The cuts back to Ric Flair, and he's just absolutely, he's sweating and his
eyes
screaming and
just
he's pointing,
bugging out.
Oh yeah, and he's so and this is someone who's seen everything, and the fact that it's getting under his skin so much is so funny. And it's just, I mean, once Jay Lethal undoes the tie and starts doing the woos and the
they just go
incredible.
Woo!
Just even the mannerisms.
Woo!
Yeah,
it's just back and forth, and it goes back and forth with one woo, one woo, one woo. But then Ric, he just loses it. He can't stop wooing.
And then he runs against the ropes and
for no reason.
It's so good, and he just did this big elbow drop. I mean, it's incredible. It has to be the best promo in TNA history, other than the Steiner Math promo.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything you could want from Ric Flair at this point in his career. And as a bonus, you get to see little babyface AJ Styles in the ring with Flair, just fuming at the utter nerve of Jay Lethal to come out here and speak to Flair in this manner. Do you remember that, when AJ was supposed to be Ric's protege?
Oh yeah,
the new Nature Boy
came out in the suits and the sunglasses, and yeah, he had the whole gimmick. They were making AJ new Ric Flair, which is pretty wild in hindsight.
Now, this actually turns out to be one of the few times we have good timing, because apparently the segment has become something of a meme recently. I haven't seen it going around lately. I even tried checking Twitter, and there's not a lot that I could find. But Jay Lethal did do an interview earlier this month talking about the segment and its recent popularity. I'll include a link to the interview in the description, but the big takeaway for me is that none of it was planned, which, in hindsight, super obvious. Can't you tell?
Yeah, oh, for sure. I think it's definitely off the cuff, which I think adds to it.
Yeah, I don't even know if TNA had a goal for this segment, but Ric Flair sure as heck didn't, and basically told Jay Lethal that they were going to wing it. So Jay Lethal is going out there, not knowing what is going to happen, but has to roll with the punches to make it work, and sure enough, he did. I'm not too familiar with his career, so I couldn't say if this was a highlight of it, but it's definitely the first thing I think of when I think of the guy, and just Rick is so good in this. He's quick-witted, and even manages to make Jay Lethal break kayfabe at one point. Jay tries to jab him with a line about Rick being bitter that quote-unquote Space Mountain is closed, and without missing a beat, Rick goes, "Oldest ride, longest line." And we cut to Jay Lethal, who is just cracking up. I don't know if this was a line Rick used regularly, but dang, that was just the most perfect comeback.
Yeah, I mean, the oldest ride, longest line has to be one of the greatest lines in wrestling history. It's unbelievable. I wonder if he said that back in the day, or if it must have been an old catchphrase or something that they brought back, because it's so good.
The only thing I didn't like here, and Rick did a lot of this stuff during his TNA run, one of the few things that kind of leaves a little bit of a sour note is that he does a fat joke about he can pick up any women, including that fat woman.
Yeah, sure.
And that doesn't hold up well, but aside from that, it was a great segment. And God, is this era of TNA streaming anywhere? Because I kind of want to go back and watch it.
I think, yeah, on the there is an Impact app.
Yeah, I gotta check it out to see if the Hogan years are there, because I've said multiple times that I didn't really start watching wrestling until 2018. That's a little bit of a lie, because there was a brief period in 2010 where I did watch TNA in college, and it was terrible most weeks, but they had their bright spots. The whole effing show, that was a really good show that they did. Mm-hmm. Hamada was a fantastic wrestler that I'm surprised she didn't get picked up somewhere else in this country. This segment here, there's just a lot of fun to be had with this period of TNA's history, even if it wasn't the good period, I guess. They didn't have like Samoa Joe and stuff like that, but
right.
It was still a unique beast of a company at that time.
Oh, totally.
And this segment is just legendary. It is one of the best things that Ric Flair did, and one of the best things in wrestling, period.
I totally agree. I think this was peak TNA at this time, which is not saying too much, but it still counts, and it's still great.
And that will do it for this episode of the Phenomenal Wrestling Podcast. We will see you next time, and until then, keep watching wrestling and keep being phenomenal.
Take care.